knowledge, and skill in running the vital functions. By innate, I refer to that intelligence which is born with and within us, and which continues to furnish vitality to our bodies so long as life lasts. Nature does not include that ever-present intelligence which exists as a separate entity. Instinct is an inward impulse without reason. It prompts our actions. Subconscious mind is a product of innate, vital phenomena occurring without consideration. Intuition is an apprehension or recognition without reason. None of these terms expressed the precise meaning I wanted to convey. I therefore chose the word innate, meaning born within. Any commentary on that, where he's defining how he got to that name?
Alan, could you tell me one more time what page?
79.
We're on page, we were just on page 679,
Okay,
the bottom couple paragraphs of that page.
okay.
Okay.
We're going to go over to, we're going to turn over to, then there's a big quote from the other person, and we're going to go over to 680
Okay.
in the second paragraph. The first, yeah. In all animated nature, the functions are ordered by an intelligence named innate, which has had a lifetime experience measured by time its kind has existed. So that's an interesting statement, because he's saying he's talking about the eternal life of each piece of innate there, where it says it gains knowledge over the time it's existed. Its commands are expressed in vital functions, their quality depending upon the condition of its channels of communication. The nerves are innate's lines of intercourse. The ability to convey intelligence depends upon their freedom from impingement. Bones may be displaced, their projecting surfaces irritating the nerves which they strike against. It is the business of the chiropractor to replace these bones in their natural position, thereby freeing the nerves from impingement and allowing innate to perform her work normally. So that's good stuff. He's saying this is what we do. This is the intention of, this is what a chiropractor is supposed to do. You're moving the bones to remove impingement from the nerves and allowing innate to express herself. And he says her work normally here. So he calls her just like BJ did later on. Anybody got anything there? So we're going to skip the quoted piece and go to the future graft or scion, which is a cutting or a shoot, which is about to be severed from a parent tree, is a part of and dependent upon the functions of that plant for existence. When separated and suitable conditions furnished, it becomes a tree with all its functions of the parent and is like unto it. The individualized innate and the physical become independent, and yet the material is dependent upon the immaterial for life and its continued existence. The first breath confirms the fact that all functions are established, quote, breathed into his nostrils with the breath of life, and man became a living soul, unquote. The living being, innate, is as much an individualized intelligence as the physical is a living form. So they're talking about a child being born and the innate presence in it. Should I keep going here then?
Yeah.
We'll go to, there's a quote here. So we're going to go to 681, the first defined paragraph there. Subluxated vertebra disarrange the costocentral articulation, the junction of the head of the rib with the vertebrae. These are projecting surfaces press against and impinge upon one or more of the four branches of the spinal nerve. The time is coming when these two intelligences will converse freely with each other for their mutual benefit upon subjects pertaining to their common welfare. He's talking about innate and educated there. Innate is not controlled by physical laws and never sleeps, neither night, gravitation, distance, heat, or cold, and it is not subject to disease, yet its intelligence advancement depends upon the physical condition of the body. So innate never sleeps. She's working all the time, isn't affected upon by anything that affects the body, but the condition of the body is what allows innate to do her job. Innate looks after the vital functions of the mother and her unborn. The educated impresses its thoughts upon innate, directing its functions more or less. And so that was one I have a question about, as far as what does he mean by that? That educated impresses its thoughts upon innate, directing its functions more or less.
Yeah, I'm not catching
Any of you
that
guys
either.
got any thoughts on that?
I don't think it's educated.
No, he's talking about innate, I mean, educated. But
He's talking about an educated having an effect on innate there.
yeah, it is a little unusual in our reading about it.
Maybe when you
Yeah,
get,
that's what I mean. It made me go, what's going on here? It's
maybe as you learn about your body, you do better health, practices and stuff like that. Maybe that's what he means. You go to bed at night, you get adjusted, stuff like that.
Well, think about this. When
Oh,
you're
there we
around
go.
people that are sick and complaining all the time, right?
Yeah.
It makes you sick when they're, you're sick and tired of all their complaining. So educated, getting into the mind, a lot of even what we went through a couple of years ago was psychological warfare, because educated influencing itself on innate.
Right.
I'm going to read the next quoted paragraph because he refers to something in it that needs to be remarked on here. So to understand what he's saying in the next one. So this first part is a quote from that he's going to address. The prospective mother seeing abnormal sights transmits thoughts of the spectacle to the innate builder, which constructs the portion of the unborn just as the mother has strongly impressed it to do. This is commonly known as nevus, marking the child, material imagination of the fetus in utero. So then DD responds, the more I study, quote, mother marks, unquote, in connection with chiropractic, the more I find natural, explainable causes of abnormal shapes and developments. The same cause that produces club feet after birth does so before birth. Contracting nerves, drawn with different parts of the feet into unnatural positions. The varying number of ossifying centers, their failure to unite because of a lack of psychological and physiological coordination is the cause of many anomalies. The occasional inclination to, quote, sport, unquote, when innate for many and varied reasons, sees fit to make a change from the ordinary, and with a view to coordinating its environment is accounted for in the same way.
How would you encounter, what is it saying? Forgive me, I don't have the page in front of me. The last sentence, what was that last sentence? You mind just reading that again?
Yeah. The occasional inclination to sport when innate for many and varied reasons sees fit to make a change from the ordinary with a view to coordinate its environment is accounted for in the same way.
What do you guys think about that? What's your first thought?
The varying number of ossifying.
There is a lot of deep philosophical insights in this that we've been
Oh
talking
gosh, yes.
opposite. You think about it in this sense, or we've said in the past, educated doesn't influence innate. But he's saying, ultimately it can. And I feel it makes sense, I
And he
mean,
goes on and talks about that more as we're going through this piece. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
So the
All
next
right.
So the next piece is the mother transfers to her offspring during gestation certain physical and intellectual peculiarities. Innate and educated influence each other, more or less, through intellectual communication. Physical characteristics and mental inclinations may be changed in after years. In other words, after birth, as time goes forward. The expectant mother may create the unborn, make Thon, and I made a note here. Thon it is something BJ used a lot. We haven't seen Dee Dee use it much. That was a term that was like that one. It's an early, it has fallen out of favor, but it's really a gender neutral term about that you can use to refer to men or women.
Okay.
So it's an unborn child is Thon. They never knew what the kid was going to be before it came out. So Thon was the referring to the unborn child. The
That's
expectant
pretty
mother may
interesting.
create the unborn, make Thon's physical and mental what she longs for by impressing her desires upon Innate the builder, the creator of the new being. These physical and mental conditions may be modified in in after years. For example, the color and texture of hair is often changed by sickness, fright, or old age.
Young age, young age.
We don't know about your hair, Hank,
What happened there?
but the rest of
We'll
us have
only
all
have to
changed our hair
guess.
color over time. uh, Therefore, how necessary is it that to have harmony, they should understand each other? Again, talking about innate and educated. Innate should have a perfect physical through which to receive impressions of its environments and be able to express itself correctly. Neither of these can be accomplished if bones are displaced, impinging upon the carriers of the expressions and impressions. So again, he's talking about innate and educated talking to each other or communicating with one another to create. And innate does her job, and things can change. And she's being impressed by the mother's thoughts while still in utero, but things can change after the baby's been born.
Now, that's where, we've talked quite a bit about that of like imprinting early life, the baby's nerve system, imprinted with the stressors that the mother goes through, really preparing the child for the world outside. So they've seen that in quite a bit of research. And I think that's very, very interesting. And Dee Dee is mentioning it right here of that level of influence of
Yeah,
outside influences, right?
yeah. Well, if her mental state affects the chemistry of her body, we understand now that they may or may not have understood as much then,
That's right.
and that can certainly affect what's going to happen to the child in utero.
Yeah, the Candace Pert, the molecules of emotion.
That's right.
Yeah. I met her at Life University, actually.
She was she was a practice member of my chiropractor at that time, and I met her once at the chiropractic office, but she was under regular care.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, at a so yeah, that was really cool. Uh, so at the bottom of that page, we say sometimes it requires close discrimination to distinguish between the work done by innate and that resulting from disease. The superior bisected portion of the above cranium, he's talking about some of the other guy referred to in there, cranium cerebrale, the skull cap, has grooves for the meningeal arteries and veins, which are much more clearly defined than usual, hence their resemblance to artistic delineation spoken above. I have a thing to skip most of this next page and go to, I want to do that bottom. Yeah, the bottom of that page. Innate is acquainted with the laws of equilibrium and motion known as animal mechanics. Educated has a knowledge that makes practical application of the laws of matter and motion in constructing machines and buildings. The osseous formation of human frames, while similar, are no more alike than our features. Any one vertebra will not fit in the place of another. Many unusual additions are found which display an intelligent adaptation of means to a definite end. And part of what's going on here is that the guy's talking about a monstrosity, some very abnormal spine. And then Dee Dee's responding to some of the things that he talks about in that. The intelligence which made these repairs was back of them directing nature, instinct, and the subconscious mind. This intelligence, I choose to call innate, will in time develop more than the recognized five senses. Educated will be informed of the precise condition when nerves are impinged upon, and the best means of their relief will be suggested. A kind of telepathy will be inaugurated. So he's talking about his vision of the innate intelligence that now exists in each of us, developing over time and becoming, as generations go forward, and ultimately there'll be a better communication between innate and educated that will be almost like a telepathy, as he calls it, inaugurated, where they'll instinctively just feed each other.
Now, let's go back. He talked about in the past about bringing the knowledge that we've gathered during this lifetime into the spirit realm. And then we're really talking about full circle back again.
Oh, he gets into spirituality before we're done with this chapter.
Well, but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
He's leading us into it.
Yes.
So what he's actually talking about is reincarnation, in a way of bringing that energy and, full cycle. This is the beginning of what we're really talking about, though. That's not just inference. He's explaining it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Inaugurated. There you go. Okay. Nature, instinct, or the mind does not manifest the intelligence herein shown in the uniting of the fractured bones. It requires action guided by intelligence. A mechanic is one who is skilled in the laws of motion and force as applied to construction. Therefore, innate is a designer. There is this particular difference, however. Innate does not use tools or instruments to build or construct.
Yeah, now I think immediately of Stevenson, in a way, really, and we're talking about the innate is constructive and is constantly building and influencing the structure that we live in right now, and where we're eventually going to get into the destructive or universal forces, but where he's talking about innate being constructive and constantly working to build this one unit of spiritual energy created in the meat bag that we live in. Can I pause 1 second? I was flipping to the next pages, and this is Bianca. She's 11 now. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Just found her newborn pictures, 2 of them, in my book. I must have been reading this and outlining it, and from way back when. I'm keeping that right in there. That's a good one.
Cool.
Yeah.
I thought I'd share that with you guys.
Excellent.
Because I'm looking through finding my pages. I've been scrambling since you guys started, and I apologize. But hey, some new pictures came up. Not new, some extremely good ones that I'm so
good
happy
memories.
Yeah. Memories, yeah.
So, and then let's put another analogy to that. Happiness makes you feel good.
Absolutely.
Sadness makes you feel bad, right?
Yeah.
So if those are educated, influencing, innate, am I off base completely on that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And and something, where was I reading that today? About getting that, don't get stuck in a bad place. When you find yourself having a negative thought, work on creating the
Oh, yeah.
positive thought. Don't be, it was an article about fear and where negativity comes from, and it's the fear of we over time. In the hunter gathering, fear was a survival mode, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to be afraid and have that negative thought, and so you have to create a positive to help yourself get out of that. And because if you live in that, you'll do that more and more. You'll get more fear, more negativity, and the opposite is also true.
You're
You
going to
break
create
that
more of
pattern.
that. Sisyphus used to say it so simply. He'd say, focus on what you want. Don't focus on what you don't want.
That's right.
Like, okay. Don't focus on
Sometimes you have
being
to
sick.
consciously just
Focus on being well.
break the pattern. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Now I'm going to skip, if we're ready to go on, I'm going to skip to the
Yeah,
bottom of
that's,
685.
Go ahead,
Where it's-
Bob.
That's something I often say to the people in my office is don't talk about what you want to happen to you, like health wise, let's just say. Look at what you want to be, how much better you want to be, you know? And we so often see people talk about it the other way, you know, and it's dangerous to themselves. But
Oh, absolutely.
it's a
A little-
beautiful ability to heal more when they start out on the right line with the right lines in their minds, saying, you know what, I not I want to I don't want to be sick anymore. I want to be well.
Give thanks for being well. I am healing right now in this moment. I am well. Yeah, absolutely.
So you have a little verbal communication thing that I learned a long time ago, and I've never gotten perfect at it, but I work at it all the time. People, when you say don't, all they hear is the active verb. Don't talk about it. Which says talk about. Say here, talk about that. So think about that, saying how you want to say it in a positive aspect, rather than don't do it. Tell them what you want them to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
And,
it.
and that goes with everything you say. Don't do that. It's all. How can you say do this?
Do this, tell them what you want, right?
Drive them towards the desire you'd like to have them had, whether it's a kid or an adult or a practice member or whatever. It's what your mind hears is the verb, not the not.
Barry,
Anyway.
you just go ahead, Bob.
It's like that bow and arrow. You want to look for the center. You don't want to be shooted at on the side or worse than that.
Yeah, I'm getting close to the target. No, I want to hit right. I see exactly where I want it to be.
Go ahead, Barry.
Yeah, this relates to the innate with the creation. Also, mentally, we cannot have two opposing thoughts at the same time. So we create, I am, and it's about creation. And then what we hear, like we're saying here, innate has impressions. She's being impressed on by thoughts, traumas, toxins, her environment during this time here in your, what do you call it? Your meatly bag, Hig?
Your meat bag.
Your meat
Meat
bag. So she's receiving those impressions. However, she is running the show. She is healing and all that. However, the goal is, as we've said in the last parts of Didi, is that it's trying to move onward and upward, right? So if you have, like Sid said, or Sig, the stinking thinking,
Right.
Innate's going to have technically a more of a challenging time than somebody who has those good positive thoughts and affirmation. Because just like we're clarifying, when you think good thoughts, I am strong, I am prosperous, I am happiness, your soul vibrates with that. It wants that tone, it wants that tune, it wants that goodness. So although we have these impressions, Innate's still going to carry on in the job. And same thing with educated, in healing these fractures, Innate's going to do it right. But educated mind's going to say, well, why does she do it this way? Why does she do it that way? And I think it's interesting because no two vertebrae are the same, not even in your own spine, let alone from one human to the next. So that distinction of that creator, that uniqueness is just mind-blowing to me. So as the saying is, I am, right? Think, therefore I am. I am, and fill in the blanks. And every morning, say something. Pick 2, pick 3. I am happy. I am joyful. I am whatever. I am smart. I am intelligent. Just pick that out. Create that. And if you have to do that 3, 5, 50 times a day, you're going to start functioning at that level of what you created.
I also do affirmations like that as I'm going to sleep. That's what I want to put in my brain as I lie down in my bed and go to sleep at night. It's a series of affirmations like that.
I go full New Jersey and just start slinging obscenities is what I do.
Well, I hope the kids don't hear you.
Look, you were saying the same thing about me, what to do to get myself
yeah.
better, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you know, in a very simple term, right? If we're being chased by a lion, our educated says fear, right?
Okay.
And
that's
then
good.
innate says fight or flight. We're going to put you in this mode to be able to survive, right? And if that's a very easiest way. A lot of us, and I know I get in the same way. I took today off, the morning. First time I've had a morning off in a long time. I took the morning off because I needed the rest, right? We get caught up in the cycle. And Pasquale used to call it the fast track. Remember him talking about the fast track? I saw a thing with Greg Braden. He said the exact same thing as Pasquale said. Pasquale said it 35 years ago. But that fast track, right? We're going up here. That's where educated thinks we are. But all our cortisol levels and everything else is trying to keep us up there. But in reality, peace is where we're meant to be. The world and all that other garbage that's fictitious, that's the fictitious world, wants us up here because that makes it look like reality. But when we're vibrating, is what we've been saying, we're vibrating in love, gratitude, happiness, joy, prayer, whatever it might be, we attract more of that to us because our vibration becomes that. If our vibration's up here, there's no room for it. Okay. So, you know, that's what I've gotten from our teachers, and we've gotten from BJ and Dee Dee Palmer and
Wow.
all the greats, men and women that we've known to give us that. So I feel honored. And when we talk about this stuff, really, you know, people ask, do self-help stuff. Did BJ and Dee Dee ever talk about those things? We've had quite a few. And in reality, what he's saying is be careful of what you're thinking, because your educated can actually influence your innate.
Yeah.
Cautious. If we constantly live in fear, we're up here at 100 miles an hour. I put New Jersey in the mix because I'll be in New Jersey this week. And, you know, there's a difference between going from Florida, really, where, you know, when I first opened, I used to do house calls in Manhattan on the Upper East Side. 7 a.m. busy. All my buddies, 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. Some of them would open in the morning. I started doing that here when I opened up. 9 o'clock. People are late for 9 o'clock appointments. You know, they're pretty much on vacation all the time. You get past Virginia up and it is hectic. I mean, would you guys agree? So it's a different vibration, and you have to be able to handle that level of vibration. So educated tells us how do we maneuver through there, and innate says this is what's possible with what we've got. I think that's the way I understand it the most for myself. You take it for what you wish.
Ready to go forward a little bit more?
Go ahead.
So I'm going to go to the bottom of 685 here. May not the same nerve transfer orders for various functions at the same time as telegraph wires conveyed several messages at one and the same moment. The delivery of the messages and their condition should be determined by the conductibility of the transferring tubes or the nerves. Now, I did have a question mark next to that because I'm like, we now don't think that nerves transfer different kinds of data along the same nerve, do we? That was just a concept that they might have had at that time, that nerves can carry lots of different kinds of impulses. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if they distinguish between impulse to impulse, or we measure it the you know, synapse.
If they carry each individual nerve carries specific data. That's what I was thinking. All right. That's not as significant. I just had a question mark there. I thought I'd let the group look at that for a second. So we're going to go to turn the page and go to the second paragraph there. All diseases shorten life by deteriorating the quality of the tissue. They hamper the intellectual progress of innate. Knowledge is gathered through the physical according as innate is able to coordinate the spiritual with the material body. It is therefore necessary in order to enhance our present and future existence to keep our bodies in proper condition. I think that is just that's hot.
Yeah.
There she is in coordination. And if you're discoordinating, you're out of chaos, you're out of tune with your thinking, right? Your educated mind, it's part of innate on this meatly platter that we're on. That's in coordination there. She's always trying to control and coordinate.
Well, but he's talking about here is that if the body is not healthy, it hampers the intellectual progress of innate. Innate can't grow, and innate grows within each of us, so to speak, even though innate is perfect from the beginning. But there's some growth that's allowed here, and the progress of innate is limited if the body isn't functioning at its best. And that, I mean, that's what he says. The knowledge gathered through the physical, according to innate, is able to coordinate the spiritual with the material body.
It seems like even back with from all these guys, and then back with Stevenson's as well, that there is a progression that means that innate, as I understand it, then really can't be perfect. How can it be perfect if it's still continuously growing? If it's then there would be, if it was always perfect, then there would be no need to grow.
But we also say that innate is a part of, well, maybe that's not part of Didi's thought then, what I'm about to say, a part of, but apart from universal. If universal, but innate is the part of universal that's in living things.
Yeah, Bob, I'm picking up on your
That
use
part
of
could
the
be
word
perfect.
perfect. I'm picking up on your use of the word perfect. Like, what is perfect, right? Like mastery.
Yeah.
She's always constructive, but technically, right? What is perfect? That's the above and beyond, right?
Yeah, it is beyond.
So she's
We're never gonna
constructive,
know.
right? She's constructive. And this is helping me think. It's like we say this in the self-development classes, you know, I'm perfect the way I am. Who I am and who I am also not. Like I am a perfect being at this moment in time. If you tell yourself, your soul, your body, your physical body, your spiritual body, that you're imperfect, you're already off. You know, I'm perfect the way I am and the way I am not right now at the current moment. That also makes me think of that as well, as far as, you know, personal development. But innate is perfect with what she has to deal with, right? With your physical platform.
Well, I also say, you know, he's talking about innate being the perfection of God. You know, it's always perfect and it's always making the right decisions. It's breaking down the chemical bonds of the food you ate to make it into fuel for your growth in your cells. But the imperfection comes
She's
from
directing the
really
breaking down process.
the breaking down process.
She's directing that process. She doesn't do it.
Well, she does a rebuilding from it. She's directing the breaking down, the acids to break it down, and then the rebuilding, right? But you know, the imperfection comes from what are we actually putting into that fuel and the food and all those things, the stuff in between our ears, the environmental garbage all around us and such. You know, that's where they have to deal with it. Has to deal with the imperfection. And, you know, I feel that's why we have such inflammation and all the other things, because the body needs to dilute it all the best that it can.
All right. The unfoldment of the soul, intelligent life, is only begun. Here and there we find unexplainable mental wonders, attributes of the soul. Herein, the latest undeveloped progression of the human race. Persons quite illiterate, by auto-suggestion, self-hypnotized, will give a discourse on any given subject or compose poetry as fast as they can talk. Psychometry leads us into the undeveloped field of soul life. It also explains first impressions on which fortune tellers depend.
Which intelligence?
If all parts of the body were normal, so that innate could express its thoughts in natural manner, we would have health. Why not study nerves, the conveyors of impulses, and bones, the framework of the body, which, if disarranged, impinge upon nerves and cause deranged functions to much, if not enough action? The time is coming when innate will analyze its own condition and educated will recognize that determination. Dreams are seemingly imaginary transactions which occur during sleep. They consist of impressions taken by the educated during our wakeful hours. It is said that those who had sight, it is said that those who never had sight never dream seeing. Those who were always deaf never dream of hearing. The transactions which take the deepest impressions, or those which occupy our minds the most, are those ones remembered when we awake. It is probable that only the very small part of our dreams are remembered when we rouse from sleep. I presume innate is ever busy handling impressions received through the physical, as much so as it is with the management of vital functions. Circumstances dreamed, which would take many minutes or hours to accomplish, pass before the mind in remarkably short space of time, as most a quarter of a minute. Yet it is dreamed of incidents that would have taken hours to perform if they had really occurred. Occasionally, dreams are of importance and systematic, giving us information upon subjects of which we were very much in need. The mysterious intercourse between innate and educated will in time be made clear and taken advantage of. We're going to talk about that, or should I go on? This is where it gets.
Barry's got something.
I love this stuff.
I heard
the
the word
deeper end.
intercourse. I heard the word intercourse between educated and innate. Love that. No, I've had last couple of weeks. I've had some extremely vivid dreams. Extremely, and have woken up almost with that fight or flight syndrome going on, and just some of the things that Dee Dee said there about also innate taking responsibility of that. I'm like, my dreams have been much more, I would say, chaotic than real life. But it does what he's saying here about the interaction between the two and us reaching the future. And I know we all say this online now, like D.D. Palmer was ahead of his time, and what we're starting to learn and scratch the surface of in this conversation we're having here tonight just reassures me that that's still happening. Because, you know, how many sleep centers are there? You know, people pay millions, billions of dollars to try to sleep and interpret dreams. And we haven't even educationally scratched the surface on that. And here for DD to talk about this tonight is quite interesting.
It's incredible.
Innate makes use of the mechanical principle of the lever. The bones from the arms of the levers, the contracted muscles, and the power of the joints of the fulera, which means deceit, or points of support. The weight of the individual limbs or parts of the moved, the weight of the or resistance. The chiropractor, the educated uses this principle when adjusting displaced portions. Nerves are never deranged. Their fibers may become tense because of impingement by bone. Their diameters may be increased. They may become stiff, rigid, and overheated, or become lax, feeble, and unable to carry impulses with normal force. Innate does the best it can, adapting itself to the condition under which it exists. We can see this intelligence displayed in all animal and vegetable life, the duality of the spiritual and the physical, spiritual beings and mortal existence. This is stuff
Keep
that
going.
is
It's amazing.
being lost by so many that are not studying this in our profession these days in some of the schools. This stuff is I think this is all integral to what we all do. I know it is to those of us who are on this call, but it's and it hurts me to think about all those people that are not learning this that could be really helping more people than they do just by cracking their bones.
You know,
Go ahead,
he mentioned impulses too. So mental impulses going from brain to body, but also the impulses going from body to brain. And he said animal and vegetative. Now that the weather's breaking in Michigan, we're starting to plant and grow things, right?
Yeah.
So also in the planting, right? If you have it in integrity and in symmetrical, most likely that plant is going to produce a better product. Same thing with us animals. Well, we have the ICAs doing studies on chickens and the eggs. Are they farmed? Are they caged? Or are they well-adjusted eggs? You could tell the difference. You could see visibly the difference on well-adjusted eggs versus cage-free versus caged animals. And so here he is talking about those impulses being too much or too little and having that neuroskeleton, that framework being in integrity. This is beautiful.
You know, and the fact that he talks about the vegetable or plants, if you think about it, you've seen the images, or you may have been in places where you see it, where on the coast where trees are all their branches are on the side away from the ocean because the wind blows in, and the innate intelligence in that tree allows it to adapt so that it can survive, and all those branches are streaking away from the side that faces the water and the wind. People often forget that there is an innate intelligence in those beings too. They're all innate in all living things.
Heliotropism, is the definition of innate in reality, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Leaning towards the sun. Sunflowers follow it in the course of the day. They'll turn their heads as from east to west during the day.
That's it. Well, we've come to the end of our session, and it's 8:44.
There's a couple more pages of good stuff here before in this. But
it's a good point. It's time to pick up.
Now.
We'll pick it up there because we don't want to just run through it. Let's digest it.
I'll make a note of where we are for myself.
It's 8:44 already, 8:45 now. But this was good stuff, and we want to digest it because we've been looking for some more meat in this book, and we don't want to just plow through it for speed's sake because there's a lot of good information and it deserves being. And I'll tell you this part: probably less than 1% of the chiropractors that have ever lived have read this far in this book. Okay, so
or sat down or thought that much about it. If they did read it.
Well, they didn't have it available till the 50s, right? And then, it was hard to get. We basically are just able to really get this book in mass now, in 25, 30 years, maybe, right? But it's weird. 35 years ago, 25 years ago is 2000. That's just too trippy for me still. I haven't let that settle in yet. I feel like it's still 2021. I mean, 2020. Whatever. Anyway, I'm there. Guys, I love and appreciate you. If I can make it to Red Bank from JFK tomorrow or on Thursday, I'll see you in Asbury Park. But now that someone could convince me to change my flight from Newark, which now is actually an okay airport to fly into on Thursday. They convinced me to change my flight to JFK, Sunday, and now I can't get a ride from JFK. But it's I'm gonna work it out. I think I'm gonna try and get my flight back to Newark, see if they'll let me do that. Yeah. An Uber even into the city is like $190.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
No.
It's outrageous.
No, it's outrageous. Yeah.
JFK is my least favorite airport in the country.
Oh. No.
Newark's easy. You can get on a train and you get anywhere. I can make it to Barry's house and get on a train from Newark. I can get there. All right. I can easily get to Alan Lichter's house. DC, absolutely. No problem. But I'm a New Yorker. I'm a train guy. If a train goes there, I can get there. All right,
Trains are
love you
so
guys.
good.
You have a
Okay,
great
nighty-night.
night. I'll see
Nighty-night.
you next.
Bye-bye.
See you next week.
Love you guys.
Love you too.